Most people imagine that if their relationship with God ever fades, it will happen because of some dramatic fall, a crisis, a rebellion, a moment where they deliberately turn away from God. But for most believers, that is not how spiritual distance actually begins. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, not with rejection of God, but with distraction. A slow shift where attention that once belonged to God is gradually claimed by something else. Look at a normal evening for many people. The room is quiet, the lights are dim, the day is almost finished. This should be the perfect moment to pause, reflect, open the Bible, and spend a few minutes in prayer. But instead, the phone lights up. One notification becomes two. Two become a few minutes of scrolling. A few minutes quietly turn into an hour. And by the time the phone is finally set down, the mind is tired, the focus is gone, and the moment that could have belonged to God has already passed. The problem is that this doesn't feel dangerous. In fact, it feels completely normal. No one feels like they are abandoning their faith when they check their phone. No one thinks they are weakening their spiritual life while watching short videos or scrolling through feeds. But attention is the doorway to every relationship in life. You cannot build intimacy with someone if your mind is constantly somewhere else. And the same truth applies to God. Prayer requires something that the modern world is quietly destroying: stillness. Real prayer is not just saying words. It requires presence. It requires the mind to slow down long enough to focus on God, to listen, to reflect, and to open the heart. But the digital world trains the brain in the exact opposite direction. Every swipe, every notification, every short burst of entertainment conditions the mind to crave constant stimulation instead of quiet attention. And the more this pattern repeats, the harder prayer begins to feel. Many believers start to think something is wrong with them spiritually. They sit down to pray, but their thoughts jump everywhere. Their mind races. They cannot stay focused for more than a few seconds. Eventually, prayer begins to feel frustrating instead of peaceful, and slowly it becomes something that happens less and less. What most people never realize is that this struggle didn't begin in the prayer moment itself. It began long before that, in the countless small moments where attention was trained to scatter instead of rest. The quiet space where prayer once lived has slowly been filled with noise, and the result is a spiritual life that feels distant, not because God moved away, but because the mind has forgotten how to be still long enough to meet Him there. What makes digital distraction so dangerous is that it doesn't just steal time. It actually changes the way your mind works. Every time you unlock your phone, scroll through short videos, or jump between apps, your brain is being trained to expect constant stimulation. Your attention begins to operate in short bursts. Quick information, quick entertainment, quick rewards. And slowly, without realizing it, your mind adapts to that rhythm. The problem is that prayer operates in the exact opposite way. Prayer is slow. It requires patience. It requires focus that lasts longer than a few seconds. But when the brain has been trained for constant novelty, silence begins to feel uncomfortable. The moment things become quiet, the mind starts searching for stimulation again. That's why so many people sit down to pray and suddenly feel the urge to check their phone, think about random tasks, or remember things that don't matter at all in that moment. This isn't just a lack of discipline, it's a conditioning problem. Modern technology is designed to capture and hold your attention for as long as possible. The endless scrolling, the autoplay videos, the constant notifications, they are all engineered to keep your brain chasing the next small hit of stimulation. Over time, this creates a mind that struggles to stay with one thing for very long. Now imagine what happens when that mind tries to pray. The moment prayer becomes quiet, the brain reacts the same way it does when scrolling stops. It begins searching for something else to grab onto. A random memory appears. A thought about work shows up. Suddenly you're thinking about a conversation from yesterday. Within seconds, the attention that was meant to focus on God is scattered in 10 different directions. Many believers interpret this experience as spiritual failure. They think they are bad at prayer. They think their faith is weak. But what they are actually experiencing is the side effect of living in a world that constantly fragments attention. A mind that is trained for noise will naturally struggle when it enters silence. And this is why digital distraction is such a powerful thief of prayer. It doesn't announce itself as an enemy. It doesn't feel like rebellion. It simply trains the mind day after day, moment after moment, until the quiet focus that prayer requires begins to feel unfamiliar. The space where prayer once flowed easily slowly becomes crowded with mental noise, and many people never realize what has actually been shaping their attention all along. There is another layer to this problem that most people never think about. Distraction is not just a mental habit, it is also a spiritual battlefield. Throughout Scripture, the enemy rarely wins by force. More often, he wins by pulling people away from God slowly, one small step at a time. Not through open rebellion, but through subtle shifts in attention. Think about it carefully. If the enemy wanted to weaken someone's relationship with God, he wouldn't necessarily need to make them abandon their faith. That would be too obvious. Instead, he could simply make sure they are always busy, always entertained, always mentally occupied. Because a person who is constantly distracted will rarely slow down long enough to seek God deeply. This is why the modern world is filled with noise. Music playing everywhere, videos constantly streaming, notifications interrupting every quiet moment. The mind is surrounded by stimulation from the moment we wake up until the moment we fall asleep. Silence has become rare. And when silence disappears, reflection disappears with it. Without reflection, the heart slowly drifts. Prayer becomes rushed. Scripture becomes something people skim instead of meditate on. Moments that once belonged to God are quietly filled with endless information and entertainment. The spiritual life does not collapse overnight, but it slowly becomes thinner, weaker, and more distant. What makes this especially dangerous is that most people never recognize it as a spiritual issue. They simply think they are busy. They assume they just need better discipline. But the real issue is that their attention has been captured by a world designed to keep them distracted. The battle is not just about time. It is about where the mind rests. And when attention is constantly pulled in every direction, something important is lost. The ability to sit with God, to listen, to reflect, to allow His presence to shape the heart. Without those quiet moments, the relationship with God slowly becomes something distant. Not because He stopped speaking, but because the noise of life never gives the soul a chance to hear Him. The good news is that what distraction has trained into the mind can also be undone. Attention is not something that disappears forever. It is something that can be retrained. Just like the digital world slowly conditioned the brain to crave constant stimulation, small intentional changes can slowly rebuild the ability to focus again. And when attention begins to return, prayer begins to feel different again. One of the most powerful changes is creating a clear boundary between your phone and your time with God. Many people try to pray while their phone is next to them, buzzing with notifications or tempting them with the possibility of checking something quickly. Even if the phone stays silent, the mind knows it is there. That small awareness alone can fracture focus. Simply placing the phone in another room or turning it completely off during prayer can create a surprising amount of mental space. Another important step is allowing the mind time to slow down before prayer begins. If someone moves directly from fast scrolling into prayer, the brain is still operating at a speed that makes quiet focus difficult. Taking a few moments to sit in silence, breathe, and let the mind settle can act like a bridge between the noise of the digital world and the stillness required for prayer. It also helps to begin prayer with something that anchors attention. Reading a short passage of Scripture slowly, reflecting on a single verse, or quietly repeating a prayer can guide the mind into focus. Instead of forcing concentration immediately, these small anchors gently pull attention back whenever it begins to wander. Over time, these habits begin to rebuild something that the digital world often weakens: the ability to remain present. Prayer starts to feel less like a struggle and more like a place of rest. The mind becomes less scattered, the heart becomes more attentive, and the quiet moments with God begin to deepen again. Distraction may have taken many small moments that once belonged to prayer, but attention is a gift that can always be reclaimed. When the noise is reduced and the mind learns to be still again, something powerful begins to happen in that quiet space. Because it is often in stillness that the presence of God becomes most clear.